everyone. Today, I want to talk about something that can save you a ton of time and money if you can just learn this one thing, and it has to do with your hiring process. So, what I see is most business owners seem to, it's basically like the old school version of hiring. It's you put out some sort of an advertisement, you say, hey, we're looking for this, and then you get a bunch of people applying, they send in their resumes, their cover letters, and then you spend however long sifting through all of that, half of which is BS, just to pick, you know, a group of people who may or may not ever get on the phone to even come in for an interview. It's such a lengthy and unnecessary process. It's the way it's been done for forever, and that's because, back in the day, that's kind of how things had to be done. Like there weren't other options, but today there's so many options. And so, I have worked with clients who have struggled for, a year or like a long period of time trying to fill a particular position. And usually with a case like that, it's an important position. So it's not a receptionist position or something like that. And they just, a lot of times what happens is my clients ask for my help, and when they because I'll charge what any headhunter would charge to get a position filled. And when they find out, they're just like, you know what? No, I'll save myself the money, which it's not a lot. I mean, it seems like a lot, I suppose, if you've never done it before. But, they'll do that and they put that off, or rather, they don't put it off. They try to do it themselves, and save themselves money. Now, the reality is when you factor in all the time, especially these high, when you look at somebody who runs a business and you really factor in how much an hour of their time is worth, it ends up becoming so, like, once you add all of that up, it ends up becoming so much more costly than if they had just paid me to do it in the first place. So what I find happens is a lot of them say, we'll do it ourselves, and they give that a go, and usually we find ourselves months down the road and they're like, can you do this please? Because they have been unsuccessful at getting in the right person for the position. This is all super common. And you might be a business owner who's sitting there going, this is not a problem for me right now, but I bet you anything it very well could be. So, I'm going to tell you about how I go about this, because I've had clients who spent a year trying to fill a position, interview after interview after interview, tried to pitch certain people, was turned down, or wasn't finding great candidates. I mean, you name it, all of that for a year. Now, how much time do you think was invested by multiple people to be interviewing all these people over a year? I'm telling you, a hell of a lot more had they just paid me to do it in the first place. And when they finally did suck it up and pay me to do it, it took me 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And that was, I don't even know how long ago, a year or more ago. And that person still works there. And they were the right person for the job. Here's how I do this. This is a very simple process, actually. What I do is I actually make it a whole lot less work and a whole lot more effective. And the thing is I take all the work off of my plate and I put it on the candidates. So the way I do this is, first, I put out an ad just like anybody else. The ads, I've done multiple different kinds of ads. It really doesn't matter, in my opinion, exactly what it says. I mean, it just they need to know what the position is, what you're expecting of them. any specific requirements, if they need some sort of certification, if you want some degree of some sort, whatever, like any kind of requirements, all of that. If you want to talk about the position, what it entails in detail, if you want to tell them, all the perks of working with you, if you want to do all that stuff, fine. Either way, you're going to get applicants, okay? Now, the best applicant, I won't even get into that. But yeah, so the way that you go about this is you put that out there, and so there's a couple different things here, I'll say. First of all, I love a completely automated process. So if I'm using a medium where I just, like in my ad, I usually will, if I'm doing it this way, I will keep the ad short. I will give them a phone number and say, call this number for more details on this position. Now, this is part of my process because now they're having to take action. And when they call that phone number will go to a voicemail. I have it programmed on a separate line where it'll just go to that voicemail. It's not going to anybody in the office, nobody, or in the business, whatever. Nobody's going to answer it. It's just going to go straight to the voicemail. And the voicemail will be anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes long, just describing what exactly you're looking for, what the job entails, what you expect of them, what the opportunity is, tell them a little bit about yourselves, and then give them instructions on what you want them to do next. And be very specific. What do you want? It could be a letter, and I'm going to state specific things that I want you to include in that letter. It could be a video. Again, answer this question, or tell me this, this, and this. It can be any number, whatever you want. I pretty much do letters or videos, and it really depends on what the position is that I'm hiring for and all that stuff. So at this point, all I've done is put out an ad and not touched anything. Now, there are certain, like Indeed, what I've found with Indeed is people are not reading the job posts. So what I do and I haven't done this in a while, so I really want to automate that process even more. So if I can figure out a way to automatically respond to everybody who applies, because what I find is there are certain websites, and the way they're set up, people just tend to sling their resumes. So what I do in like on Indeed is everybody who sends in their resume gets a message back, which is pretty easy, copy and paste. If you just hand it off to somebody who can just go through and copy and paste it to everybody. But send them a message back saying basically what you would say on the voicemail. This is who we are, this is what we expect, this is what I need from you, and then give them the details of what you want them to do should they proceed. And, you want to point them to like some kind of, get them off of Indeed, get them into like an email, have an email that's set up strictly for hiring so that they can send their stuff there and it's not cluttering up anybody else's inboxes, all that good stuff. The whole this particular step is so critical because it's getting rid of a ton of work. Resumes, so many of them are just, they all look the same. They all, half of them are full of BS. They're just, everyone, like so many people pad their resumes. Resumes are like the most useless thing in the world. Do I make them send their resume? Sure. I take like 2 seconds to look at it, just like every other hiring manager. But what I really want, and I don't look at their resume unless they have gone through whatever it is that I have asked them to do. Because the one thing I want to test them on first, and I'm sorry about the light, because it was like cloudy, like it was going to storm, and now it's starting to get sunny, so it's suddenly getting bright. But what I want to test them on is, can you follow directions? Do you want this job bad enough to listen to the whole voicemail or read the entire message that I send you. Like how, like if you don't want the job that bad, or if you don't have the capacity, whatever the reason is, like I only want somebody who's actually going to care enough to read the message or listen to the whole voicemail, and who's going to be careful enough, because this is them at their best. Remember that. That is one thing to always remember when you are interviewing or in the interview hiring process, is that you have people at their best. If they cannot follow directions, if they don't take the care and the time to follow directions and, listen to a message about this business, about this job, you don't want these people. Let them go work somewhere else. I don't care what their degree is. I don't care. I don't care. If they can't do that process, I don't want them working for me. And I'll tell you what, I have built some pretty effing amazing teams. So, just trust me on this. Now, the next step in the process is once all those people, because you're already narrowing down. Now you don't even have to look at the resumes. You just narrow it down to the people who actually go through the process and do it properly. That's all you. So now you're not looking at 200 resumes. You're probably looking at 20 videos, 20 letters, 20 whatever, 20 resumes. Just looking at this, smaller group of people. You've already narrowed down your candidates, so you're not wasting time on all these people who will waste your time in a heartbeat. Invite all of those people. And I mean, really, like, if somebody, maybe if you look at their resume and you're like, I don't know, give them a chance. I mean, I do look for red flags in this process, in this beginning process. If there's any red flags, if there's any, if they just aren't, like, they're not qualified for the job, you look for those red flags, look for those obvious no's. Weed those out, don't invite them to this next step. But everybody else, invite them to the next step, which is a group hiring, group interview. Because still, we are not wanting to spend a lot of time on people who might not be a good fit. Okay? The next step, get them in this group setting. And what you want to do at this point is you want to first get them all in the same room. You are going to stand up there, you or whoever, get somebody who's well spoken, who has no problem getting up in front of a group of people and talking. And you spend 15 to 25 minutes talking about who you are, what do you do, what all is important to you as a business. I would talk about, a little bit of our history. Oh, actually, no, I would explain our history because we were anyway. So I would talk about history. I talk about, the services that are provided, who are the key players, who do they need to know. And then I would really focus on what the job entails and what kind of a person we are looking for. And and when I talk about what the job entails, I am always brutally honest. A lot of people, I don't know why they do this. A lot of people try to kind of gloss over, like, the nitty gritty. Like, they try to, like, sweep the ugly parts of a job under the rug. And it's the exact opposite of what you should be doing. You should be totally upfront about that. Because otherwise, like, here's the thing. When you try to brush it under the rug, 6 months later when they figure it out, or even a month later when they figure it out, they're not going to be happy about that. They're going to be like, you guys are full of it. They're going to be, like, doubly unhappy. Because let me tell you, even when you're honest and you tell them, like, right up front, this is how it is, there are still going to be those people who come to work for you, a couple months down the line. They're going to be like, they're so full of it. This is not what I expected. You could have been brutally honest and you're still going to get that. But you are much less likely to deal with that because you are brutally honest right up front. So don't sugarcoat. Be absolutely straightforward about what the job entails and what it's going to mean for them. What are the ugliest parts of the job, and what kind of a person are you looking for? Like, really. And then, I always focused a lot on the business culture. This is who we are. These are the kind of people we're looking for. I mean, the best thing I can say about this is just be brutally honest. This isn't about sugarcoating. This isn't the time to try to paint yourselves to be anything more than what you are. You need to be straightforward about who you are, because you're not doing yourself or the candidates any favors. Because when they leave you and you're starting this whole process over again in 3 months, you have wasted time and money. So you'd go through this whole thing of talking to them for 15 to 25 minutes, whatever it is you end up talking about. Don't go over 30 minutes with that, by the way. After that, you send them all out of a room and you bring them in one by one and you talk to them for literally like 5 minutes. 5 minutes. You should be like, depending on how many candidates, like, I mean, if you're a small business and you get 20 people, I mean, once you get, it really depends. Actually, I shouldn't say once you get to smaller businesses. In my experience, I think the biggest group I've had for like a regular small town business is probably 20 people. But a lot of times it's like smaller groups, so whatever. You should be done with this within an hour to two. You only talk to them for about 5 minutes and you ask them like 2 questions. Maybe if there's anything you saw, if anything they said in their letter or said in their video or you saw on their resume, anything you have a question about, you can ask real quick. But really, I focus on, okay, based on everything that I said, over this last 20 minutes, why do you think you're a good fit? And then just see what they say. Another really important part of this process is having this. You should never do this alone. You should have at least one other person, if not 2. And the other 2 people really need to be, while whoever's speaking is speaking, okay? But while they're speaking, the other people should be paying attention to these candidates and watching like their facial expressions and their body language and kind of seeing, do these people look like they're engaged with what we're talking about? Do they look like they're excited or happy, or what is it? Because if they look totally bored and disinterested, like, oh, when's this going to be over? That's it. I mean, don't even bring that don't waste your time. Ask them the one question and then just say, and I'll make a note. When I got done with I'll make a note, but when I got done with that 20 minute, being like putting it all out there, I would always invite people to leave. If you don't feel like you're a good fit for this, then I invite you to leave. No hard feelings. I hope I wish you the best in your career search. Just go ahead and leave. I've never had anybody leave, but yes. So you ask them. That's basically, you can, like I said, you can ask them if you have any concerns, if any concerns have been raised in any step of the way, or if you have anything specific, like if the job position you're hiring for, you maybe, like if you're hiring for multiple positions, you have tons of different groups coming in to interview, just maybe clarify like, hey, are you okay with traveling? Are you okay with whatever? Anything important. Oh, and I will say, another thing too is I always, in my speech, because we did an assessment, we would not hire without doing this assessment. If we didn't, and if the person didn't, if the person who, when they took an assessment, didn't match the position, we wouldn't hire them either. And so I always did a short speech about that assessment, because otherwise I would have to do that speech over and over and over to explain this assessment. So I took the opportunity to always make that speech. Sometimes I forgot, but make that speech when I was in that initial hiring. So actually, I think I took it. I think it took forgetting it one time, and I added it to my notes. But yes. So if you have something like that where it's like, you know, you're going to do some kind of an assessment or some kind of something, and you want everybody to know about it, so you don't have to do this speech individually over and over and over again, make sure you include that in that 20-minute speech. Now, so you do that, and basically all you're really doing is looking to see, are they engaged? Do they really look like they're genuinely interested? How do they present themselves? Did they show up on time? And then, and that's really it. And you send them on their way. So far, you probably should have only spent like an hour or two. That's it. You have one person who organizes that group hiring. That's the other hour there. Like an hour for that person to gather up all the information for the candidates who are supposed to appear, and then setting up whatever the location is. And always have it off. Don't have it at your office. Do not do the initial group hiring at your location. Do it somewhere else. There's always those like rent and office spaces. I mean, I shouldn't say always, but there's often those rent an office space type of thing. Rent a boardroom, rent a something. Panera has private rooms you can rent sometimes. Those are my favorite because you can, like, they only charge you for food. Like, you have to spend a certain amount on food. So you're really just buying food, but because you buy a certain amount, that qualifies for the room. So anyway, because usually I spent more on, like, renting a boardroom than I would on Panera, and I didn't get any food for it. So yeah, anyway. Yes, so sometimes, and if you are a big company or a bigger company and you're doing this, you might have to rent out like a hotel, like a ballroom, small, or some kind of a space like that. Anyway, so yeah, once you go through that's the whole initial process. And like I said, that should have only, once you set up your hiring process, it's really like flipping a switch. So that, like, actually putting the ads out and getting all that going, like, that should take like no time at all once you get it set up. After that initial hiring, where you weed out anybody who looks bored or disengaged or doesn't show up on time or doesn't present themselves well, you weed out those people, and then only bring back the people who get past all of that. Bring them back, talk to them for an hour, bring in whoever their leadership is going to be. So, you might have a hiring manager or multiple hiring managers and whoever their team leader would be. I always recommend including that person, because they're going to have the input on whether they're going to fit with the team dynamic. And I have a whole host of questions and things like that I recommend. I'm not going to get into that. I'm already like 20 some odd minutes in. But yeah, that essentially is my hiring process. So it does not, like I said, that takes me 2 weeks. I will put out an ad. Now it depends. Like, if you are looking to get a big pool of candidates, if you are a bigger company, you might put out the ad for like 2 weeks. I usually put out the ad for like max a week. By the end of that week, those invitations have gone out to whoever the candidates are, who are my potential hires, or I'm sorry, whoever the candidates are who are my interviewees for my first round of interviewing, that first group interview, they're getting their invitation. And it's just that's the other thing I didn't mention, was that group interview, one day, one time. You want the job, you show up. Otherwise, you're not. It's just that that's your chance. How bad do you want it? Um, yeah, and so that's it. So they show up, or they don't. They go through the group interview process. You weed out the people who aren't showing enough interest or not presenting well, not on time, and then you go into like real in-depth interviews with really solid like questions and have every step of the way I always have multiple people for the interviews because you want different perspectives. So that's how I do it. Like I said, I can fill a tough position to fill in like 2 weeks. So that's why I decided to do this video. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys for today. If you have any questions, if you want to know interview questions, if you want like that kind of stuff, I have a lot of that stuff, a lot of those materials. Subscribe to my channel, like this video, share, leave me a comment if you want to know more about hiring or interviewing and certain questions. Okay?